What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another Shane Says. Appreciate you checking in. Go ahead and hit that like. Maybe wait till after the show, see if you actually like it, and then hit the like if you like it. But the 2025 NFL season is about to kick off with the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday. By the time you've watched this, that game might have taken place. Either way, fantasy scoring season, point scoring season is literally just hours away now. With the 25 season kicking off, like I said, I have some questions about what's going to happen in 2025 specific to a couple players. And I'm just going to go over those today. So first off, the New York Jets running back room. What is going to happen there as far as the opportunity shares, the workload, etc.? And most importantly, for me at least, is Breece Hall. That's who I care about. I don't really care that much about Braylon Allen. I don't care about Isaiah Davis, unless, of course, they take a bunch of work from Breece Hall. There's been talk out of Aaron Glenn coming from New York that the Jets backfield might look a little different, that they might have a three-man rotation. So I just wanted to take a look at a couple of things and see how that might affect Breece Hall. Now, last year, the Breece Hall had a 72.3% snap share. That was eighth among running backs, 72% snap share. His opportunity share now was 68.8%, and that was 15th among running backs, which is pretty good, right? You know, that's pretty good. What's funny is the year prior, his opportunity share was ranked higher, even if it was lower. In 2023, he had a 68% opportunity share, which ranked 12th among running backs. What's interesting about that, though, and what's germane to this conversation, is the fact that he saw a 57% snap share. So snap share was significantly lower in 2023 as opposed to 2024. Yet he still had I don't know if I want to say significantly, he had a better season. Yeah, pretty significant, 2 points per game. He had a better season in 2023 as opposed to last year. So he averaged 17.1 points per game in 2023, which had him as the running back 6 in points per game. Last year, just 15.1 points per game, which had him at 17th. So in 2023, he played fewer snaps. Opportunity share was a little less. Yet he produced at a better fantasy clip. So why? Well, let's see. That's because he set career highs in targets and receptions, and he also happened to set a career high in touchdowns. Not a significant amount compared to last year, or at least significantly larger. He had 9 touchdowns in 2023 compared to 8 in 2024. But what he did have is, like I said, a ton of receiving work. If you look at what he did to get to those 17.1 points per game, he had 95 targets and 76 receptions. Last year, that fell to 57 receptions, just 57 receptions. So again, even though the opportunity share overall was a little lower in 2023 and the snap share was significantly lower, he still produced better because he saw more targets. And again, why is that germane to the conversation? Well, Aaron Glenn has already talked about this. I'm going to paraphrase the quote, right? There was this quote from Aaron Glenn talking about how he wants to use his running backs in New York like he did in Detroit, and specifically talking about how you can split Breece Hall out wide, how he has a good large route tree and he can run routes like a receiver. And he likes that, he gets to match up against safety or linebacker. And Braylon Allen, you just pound it, right? Here's the exact quote for this part of it. With Braylon Allen, man, you just pound it. He's a 240-pound man that's going to be hard to bring down. And that's two different dynamics that you can have ready, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he is going to use Braylon Allen as I don't want to say hammer, right? But in this role, he's going to be the dude that he runs up the middle. He's the dude that might get some goal line work, right? He's the dude that is going to be the short yardage guy. Whereas Breece Hall will get the receiving work. At least that's how I'm taking it. And like I said, Breece Hall has already shown a propensity to being a good receiver. I mean, over the last 2 years, I'm going to try to do the math. He has over 120 receptions, 130 receptions, if I'm doing math correctly. And I think I am. So about 130 receptions over the last 2 years. So even if this backfield is split and Breece Hall sees a lower opportunity share or snap share, more importantly, snap share, I think his opportunity share can stay roughly the same if we can get him back to the levels that he was in 2023 with targets and receptions. And it seems like Aaron Hall is a singer from an R&B band in the 80s. Excuse me, Aaron Glenn is a coach for the New York Jets, not Aaron Hall, R&B singer, but Aaron Glenn, coach for the New York Jets, has talked about using him in a receiving role. I think that we're going to be pleasantly surprised with Breece Hall. So we'll see week 1, right? We'll see. We'll dive into that and follow the volume to see what kind of splits we have when they're on the field, who's on the field for third down, who's on the field for third and long, goal line work, all that stuff. Speaking of receiving work, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Bill, better known as Bill. I did a video on him last week. If you didn't see it, go check it out. Jump in the comments. Comments were fun. A lot of them agreeing with me, good bit disagreeing with me. Either way, that's not really what we're talking about today. What I'm talking about and what I want to see, or what I'm looking for with Bill starting in week 1, what type of receiving role is he going to have? Now, I talked about it. He has not been a receiving option in his collegiate career. He was not a receiving option. Sure, that doesn't mean that he can't do it, right? I can't say that just because he hasn't done it doesn't mean that he can't do it. It could be just that that's how the offenses were set up. What I can say is it's not been part of his repertoire. And a player that is their skill set is Austin Eckler, who is actually still on that roster, right? He didn't get traded. Brian Robinson did. Austin Eckler's still on that roster. And even though Austin Eckler is not the player that he was several years ago, he's still an elite target getter at the running back position. So last year, he ranked 12th among running backs in target share. The year prior to that, 7th. This is still a dude that gets targets, which, again, just because Bill hasn't done it, I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying he hasn't done it in his past. And Austin Eckler's on the team, a player that even last year in his diminished capacity was able to garner a 12% target share. To me, that's a little troublesome if you're hoping that Bill's going to be an elite fantasy asset, right? You need targets to be an elite fantasy asset for the most part. I just took a look at all the running backs in the top 24 last year. Top 24 running backs by points per game. So of those 24 running backs, all but 5 of them saw at least 40 targets last year. Okay. And of the 5 that didn't see 40 targets, that were top 24 running backs, not every one of them, 4 of the 5 had at least 11 rushing touchdowns. You had Barkley, who had 13, Henry 16, JT had 11, James Cook had 16, and then David Montgomery had 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, nope, I was correct. It actually is 5 running backs that weren't in the top 24, or that were in the top 24 without 40 targets. They were all elite touchdown getters. So that's the thing. So is Krosky-Merritt going to be an elite goal line back? Well, that's the question, right? Or is he going to be the goal line back in Washington is the bigger question, because I don't think he's going to be the receiver. So what we need for him to be a top 24 asset is probably the running back that gets the goal line work there. So I will say this, without Brian Robinson on there, there is definitely the opportunity for rushing attempts in the red zone. Last year, Brian Robinson was tied for ninth with 14 rushing attempts inside the 5-yard line. So the opportunity could be there for JCM if that's his role. And I'm not saying it is. This is just a questions episode. If I had to bet money on it, I'm betting against JCM being a receiving back, but the goal line back, that is to be seen, right? I don't think that's going to be Austin Eckler's role. I don't know how they're going to use Chris Rodriguez. We're going to find out. Right now, I think Washington put out their depth chart and they had Bill as the running back 4. And as much as I'd like the victory lap, that's really meaningless because these depth charts mean absolutely nothing right now. And Caleb Johnson and Henderson, etc. Trevor and Henderson are also like running back threes on their roster, according to their depth charts. So the depth chart doesn't really mean much. So what Bill needs is either the receiving work, and if he's not going to do that, can he get the goal line work? Because if he can't get the receiving work and he can get, double-digit rushing touchdowns, well, then he can at least be a top 24 asset. Yes. All right. Third question for me. I don't want to trigger anyone, but Garrett Wilson, are you ever going to reach your ceiling? And I like Garrett Wilson. Just need to put that out there. Garrett Wilson is especially elite at garnering targets, right? That is something that from day one, he has been elite at. Now, turning those targets into production, he's done it to a certain level, but not the level that we're really hoping for, right? We're hoping that Garrett Wilson is going to be an elite wide receiver, like a top 12 wide receiver, and he hasn't been that yet. He's been wide receiver 30, 32, and 18. 18, I'm squinting. That's really small. So at least there's one. There's some troubling signs with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, again, like I said, has been an elite targeter. In every season of his career, he's garnered at least 147 targets. 147 as a rookie, 168 in 2023, and then 153 last year. So just for fun, because I was curious, I went back to 2020. So I went back to 2020, 21, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 years. Thank you. Verify that. So I looked at the last 5 seasons of NFL football at wide receivers that had at least 147 targets. Kind of arbitrary, but that's because that's what he got in his rookie season. That's the lowest amount of targets that he's seen is 147 targets. And then using StatHead, great site, but using StatHead, I went ahead and took a look at fantasy scoring for these wide receivers that had at least 147 targets. So there's been 36 wide receivers, or at least 36 seasons, because some of these receivers have done it multiple times. Obviously, Garrett Wilson being one of them, he's done it 3 times. So there's been 36 seasons of a wide receiver with at least 147 targets going back to 2020. Garrett Wilson's ranks in points per game are 32nd, 34th, and 35th among those 36. So he's been one of the lowest scorers, even though he's had an elite target share, because everyone's had elite raw targets in this list, right? But again, out of the 36 wide receivers that have had at least 36 seasons from wide receivers with at least 147 targets over the last 5 years, Garrett Wilson ranks 32nd, 34th, and 35th in points per game those seasons by season. So let's see here, he had 153 targets last year, 154 depending on what site you use, but he had 14.82 points per game. That ranked 32nd over the last 5 years among wide receivers that had 147 or more targets. That's what I'm talking about. So his scoring it's not been elite, though the target share has. Now I look at his Trinity score just to see what his range of outcomes are, right? And if you're unfamiliar with the Trinity score, the Trinity tracker, you want to go ahead and check out ddfantasyfootball.com. Make sure you check that out soon. Anyway, I look at his Trinity score, and his Trinity score tells me that his range of outcomes is anywhere from 13.3 points per game to 18.6 points per game. Now, that's based off the usage, right? And you want to shoot for that high-end outcome, that 18.6 points per game. The problem with that is that, and that's based off what his usage last year. The problem with that is his usage last year would have given you the belief, his usage, yes, last year would give you the belief that he should be an elite wide receiver or close to high-end wide receiver 1 in 2025. Except the problem is that's the exact same thing that we saw in 2023. In 2023, his Trinity score was 7.57, right at that high-end wide receiver threshold. He has, I don't want to make this sound not going to sound the way I want it to sound, right? But he has a history of underperforming his targets. Now, why that is, quarterback play. Quarterback play has been bad, right? And this year he does get to, what's the word I'm looking for? Reacquaint himself, get back together with, I can't think of the correct term, reunite. There you go. Justin Fields, a player that he played in college with in 2019 and 2020. And they had some success together, though Garrett Wilson's real breakout season was in 2021 after Wilson left, or excuse me, after Justin Fields left. Just how it went. But that could be more than just because it was Justin Fields. That's because, well, Ohio State was wide receiver you, and you had to work your way up to position where you could be the number one dog there. But anyway, so he's played with Justin Fields before, a couple seasons, like I said. It should be noted, Justin Fields, it should be noted, there is a history of Justin Fields being a skeleton key for a wide receiver, right? DJ Moore, he set season high or career highs in receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns, and fantasy points per game in 2023 in his only season playing with Garrett Wilson. I know the quarterback play has not been great. The Trinity score keeps telling you that the usage is high-end wide receiver one. We really need to see if will Garrett Wilson get there this year. Okay. My fourth and final question, at least for this show. I have tons of other questions, but we don't need this to be an hour and a half of me babbling. What is Rome Odunze going to be? I have come around on him. He's a player that, I go back and forth on because I say, he had 8.5 points per game as a rookie. It's not great, right? He only had 57 receptions. Also not great, although the 57 receptions might have something to do with the fact that he ranked at 99th among wide receivers in catchable target rate last year, according to playerprofiler.com. It's hard to convert targets into points when the passes and the targets aren't catchable, right? So I went ahead and went back and I wanted to take a look at something, right? So Rome Odunze was pretty elite for a rookie, pretty elite. I don't know if that's you can't be kind of pregnant. I don't know if you can be pretty elite, but I would say he was elite for a rookie at garnering targets. He had a 19.2% target share, which is really impressive as a rookie, 101 total targets. So just curiosity, I went ahead and looked at all the rookie wide receivers from 2018 to 2023 that had 101 targets up until I made my cutoff about 117. I didn't want to get into the guys like Puka Nacua had 160, Garrett Wilson had 140, Jalen Waddle 140, Jamar Chase 128, Jefferson 128. Those guys are kind of like, that's a significantly more higher amount of targets than what Rome Odunze saw in his rookie season. But, 101 through that 117, that's a difference of about 2 targets per game, less than that, actually. So let's just list off the wide receivers that have done this. And again, this is rookie wide receivers with 101 targets, at least 100 targets, to about 117, 119. Let's go to 119, right? That gives us ARSB, Chris Olave, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb. Good group so far, right? Gets a little sketch right here. Chase Claypool. Well, that's the only real sketch. Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Rashee Rice, DK Metcalf. That's not bad. And then I just glanced at what these wide receivers did in their second seasons. Well, what Puka did, he was a monster. Well, never mind. Take Puka out of the equation. He had too many targets. So let me scroll back down. Okay. ARSB, really good second season. Chris Olave might not have been the season that I wanted, but it was still very good. Drake London, wide receiver, good season. Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb was wide receiver 2. We've got multiple wide receiver 2 seasons out of these wide receivers after their rookie season. We even have a couple wide receiver 1 seasons, even if they are low wide receiver 1s. T. Higgins, Devonta Smith as sophomores. So for the most part, the wide receivers in this range that saw 101 to 117 targets, 119 targets. We'll go with 119. I keep going back and forth. I know. it's hard when you're trying to figure out like this arbitrary, like, all right, what's kind of close, but isn't insanely over that amount. Anyway, 119 is where we settle. Like I said, you look at the wide receivers in that cohort, there's been some really good second seasons. Now, we are going to need some things to improve. Like I said, that catchable target rate, yeah, that's really going to need to improve. And that, just real quick, ARSB was also a wide receiver one. So we've already got, right off the top of my head, 3 wide receivers in that range of targets in the rookie season that went on to give you wide receiver one seasons the next season. Not saying that Rome Odunze will be a wide receiver one, but there's also a wide receiver 2 season sprinkled in there. What I'm saying is this is generally, if you earn targets, you are a target earner, you're going to continue to earn targets and you're probably going to produce. So that's where I'm at with Rome Odunze. And again, yes, we are going to need to see that catchable target rate of 58%, maybe not suck quite as bad. Like if we could get him into the top, I don't know, or top 50 of catchable target rates among wide receivers, maybe he produces a lot better. And that's kind of where I lean. They got Ben Johnson there, right, to fix Caleb Williams or at least help him improve. So that's where I'm at. I think Rome Odunze is going to be elite. I don't know about elite, but at least a wide receiver 2 season is in his range of outcomes, and maybe even a wide receiver 1 season if you just look at his comps, or at least the cohort of players that he's with. So again, here's my quick questions. How's that New York Jets backfield going to break down, specifically for my dude, Breece Hall? Bill, what is Bill's role actually going to be? I think we're going to find out a lot in week 1. Are they using him on third down? Are they using him on the goal line? Are they using him in the receiving downs, the passing downs, things like that? So that'll be interesting to see. We should know quickly if I'm a doofus or if I know what I'm talking about. Will Garrett Wilson ever reach his ceiling? Again, he was wide receiver 18 last year, so he's progressing, right? He was wide receiver 32 in 2023, wide receiver 18 in 24. At that trajectory, he should be, let's say if you do it correct, jumps another 14, he'd be wide receiver 4. I'd be okay with a wide receiver 1 season if we could get that, not wide receiver 4 overall, but if we can get any type of wide receiver 1 season out of him, that'd be cool. And what is Rome Odunze going to be? I think he's going to be pretty good, at least a wide receiver 2. But hey, here we're going to start finding out all these answers in a couple days. So thank you very much. I'll talk to everybody later. What are your questions, though, actually? Let me know what your questions are in the comments. And just one program note after you let me know those comments. Shane says we'll be moving. We'll still be part of the DD Fantasy Football community, but it's just going to be moving over to the Discord. So if you like the show, if you actually rock with me like that, if you enjoy my show, go ahead and go to patreon.com/allgas. Sign up. There's the Discord community, which is quite awesome. You get to chat with Scott and Ray, but also if you like me, you're watching the show, you're going to get Shane Says exclusively on there. And that's going to happen in the next couple weeks. So appreciate everybody watching, and I will talk to you later, and happy football season.